This is Coach World TV, and I'm Laurie Lawson. And tonight my guest is Audrey Pellicano. Hey, Audrey Pellicano. Audrey is, and I'm so thrilled she is, a grief counselor. And I'm not sure that, I know that this is an up-and-coming profession, and I'm not sure that we have had a grief counselor on, and if we have, it's been a very long time. So I am dying to talk to you about what you do and what the difference is between that and regular old life coach. So Audrey, welcome.
Thank you so
And,
much.
and if I told you the temperature outside, you'd be standing and giving her an ovation. It is so cold we can't believe it. But we're gonna, and I hope this isn't gonna air in the summer. Then they will have no idea what we're talking about.
That's true.
But trust me, it's cold. Audrey, tell me. I guess I want to know first of all. I guess I want to know what is the difference between grief counseling and just if someone came to me and go, oh, I'm so sad, and what's the difference here?
Well, actually, if somebody comes and says, I'm so sad, that I wouldn't discount that there's a possibility that this person was grieving.
You're going to love how she expands the grief, because it was like, I went, oh yeah, I guess that is grief, but yes, let me let her tell you, yes.
Because grief is not, although we typically associate it with the death of someone we love, we all grieve many different things that occur in our lives from the time we're little. So it could be loss of a loved pet. It could be a bicycle that was stolen. It could be loss of a best friend, a fair weather friend. And then as we move into transition periods as we grow, it's graduating high school.
Oh, okay.
Graduating college.
Oh, yeah. Graduating life coach school, actually, because
See?
I go and talk to the graduating class and go, I know this is bittersweet because you guys are parting. Yeah, okay.
So grief really, when someone is sad, there's a lot of depth there. We're sad because of job loss. We're sad because of a move, whether it was a move that was going to be for a better job. There's still, you're grieving a neighborhood, relationships that you're leaving behind. So I would definitely pursue where the origin of the sadness comes from.
Okay, so we're saying loss of almost anything.
Yes.
So what made you get into this specific niche, for lack of a better terminology?
Well, it was basically because of my own life experience, and my husband died when I was 38 years of age. And when I moved into a new neighborhood, I actually would have young widows. Someone would call and say, did you hear, Mary's husband died this past weekend? And I would contact them, have them over for coffee, and basically just listen.
So you became the neighborhood widow.
Well,
or the widow leader or something, yeah.
I really didn't identify with that. It was just being a heart with ears, because unless you've been to a place of deep grief, it's very difficult to understand, and because society, we're not taught how to support grievers. The best person to support you is another person who has been there. So that evolved over time.
I love that expression, a heart with ears. That's so great. And I, too, was widowed young. And it's like, and I wish there had been a Mary in my neighborhood. I mean, not a Mary. I was the Mary, an Audrey in my neighborhood. Because you do feel very isolated, especially if you're young. It's like, oh, why is this happening to me at such a young age?
Oh, absolutely. And when I had, at the time, and I'm going back 22 years, my baby is now 22, there was little out there. There was no grief counselor. There were bereavement groups,
Were there?
predominantly run by hospice.
Okay.
And I did attend one. And
I
the
did
widows
too.
that were there were double my age.
I was the youngest person in the room. You walk away going, you feel worse. I felt worse.
I knew they couldn't support me where I was, but I've also learned through grief counseling that I put a group together, and it can be a 79-year-old widow and a 27-year-old widow. And the work that they do, the process that they go through, absolutely moves them further. But when you set up something like a support group and you're telling your story, it's so very different.
Yeah, and that's why I'm so excited to have Audrey on, because it's like it was not I walked away feeling, wow, good. Okay, I'm a little further than there, but I also walked away feeling I just don't fit in anywhere. So this, I love, she's going to tell us about this. It's a 7-step process.
Yeah, it's a 7-week program.
I'm sorry, 7-week, yeah.
And it's actually called the Grief Recovery Method, and it was a method that I used myself when I was in search of how to move forward, knowing that I was doing everything society had told me I was supposed to do when I was grieving.
There are rules, yes.
There are rules. Time heals all wounds.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you can get over it. Be strong.
Right, right.
And that wasn't working.
Yeah.
And I wasn't feeling better, and I had 4 children to raise. And I knew I needed to understand my grief and the painful experience. And I think one of the most difficult human experiences to go through.
I think it's I think it's the number one fear of everyone, and then public speaking, like you and I are doing, is the number 2. So yeah. But so when you say it's a process that you went through, did you create the process?
I did not create the process. I studied with John James and his partner out in California. They wrote the book 30 years ago.
Wow.
And it was based on their experience having had losses and the same experience of the social cliches and the myths that did little to help them in their grief. And so they came up with this program, and I just haven't had a client that hasn't really had a transformation. And I'm not saying grief doesn't end at the end of 7 weeks. Grief is lifelong, as you know.
Yes, yes.
It just changes. But it's the understanding of the normalcy of grief and the ability then to move forward that this process really allows. And there's responsibility. There's homework.
Okay.
I've done my work, and it really takes a commitment on the part of the person who is, whether it's a group that I'm running or a one-on-one, there's the responsibility to say, I want to move forward. And in doing these assignments and understanding the process, they're going to reap the benefits.
Now, when you say normalcy of grief, are you talking about those 5 stages that we hear about?
Oh, that's real.
I knew the answer to that.
No, I don't believe in the stages of grief. And actually, it's been used, and I think it was back in '69, I believe, Elizabeth Kubler-Ross, Dr. Ross, wrote on death and dying. And it was actually one of those have-to reads as a freshman in nursing school.
Oh, okay.
In college. And she was actually commissioned to write the book.
Oh, really?
Yes. And she did speak to dying individuals. And from her conversations, she determined those stages of grief. From there...
From the dying?
People who are dying. That's what the book is about. Patients who are dying. Not about those that are
Oh,
left.
how about that? Now, how many of you knew that? I always thought this is what the survivors go through.
Absolutely not. And I think that is one of the areas that people who are grieving get stuck in. And it's that question. And I remember having a therapist, this was prior to doing the method, who insisted I was at the denial stage. I'm not denying that my husband died. That's not where I'm at. And if so, when do I graduate to the next stage?
When is
this
this stage over? Yeah.
To get through all of these stages.
Yeah.
So, and actually, I write a blog on my website, and I actually addressed each individual stage. So there are 6 blog posts related to this, because there are a lot of therapists who agree that the stages of grief do not exist, and they do more harm than good.
Right, people are still trying to convince me that I'm angry that someone died. And it's like, I'm really not. I mean, it's like, I'm not angry, but maybe I should be angry. So you try to work up anger because
Absolutely.
It's like, I want to get through this fast, and I want to get to stage 2, yeah. Or whatever stage 1 is. So.
Right, but that's why we've come to reach a large number of us, not everybody. And actually, you can Google stages of grief. People have come up, added stages. There's now the stages, 7 stages of grief. There was originally 5. Now somebody added 2 more. Oh my God, we're lengthening this out. So yeah, I just definitely believe that that really is not helping a person grieve at all.
Well, explain to me now, because we're saying we're lengthening it out, and I don't want people to think that you're shortening it by saying it's seven weeks.
Oh, grief, no, grief lasts a lifetime.
Yeah,
It
yeah.
changes. However, it's that point where someone is stuck. And typically I see clients anywhere from 2 to 10 years after their loss.
Wow.
Because
10
what
years.
they've been doing hasn't worked. And they can get stuck in their grief. They're still, although the pain does lessen, okay, it's not that severe pain.
Right.
That grief that we get stuck in can stop us from moving forward in every area of our life, including other relationships.
Oh, definitely.
So going through the program, the 7-week program, as I said, it shifts your understanding of what grief is. That grief is normal and natural response to a loss of any kind. And nobody is getting out of here without experiencing it multiple times.
Right.
And I'm not just talking about the death of a loved one, but the losses that we just move through life and have.
Right. I've always said that the benefit of surviving a loved one is that you get to do it all over again. It's like that the longer you live, the more you're going to see this happen. I mean, if not in the sense of a national disaster, like
Yes.
there are people 2001 who have no idea, you know, they were gone before then, but or an individual. Either way, it's a loss, and it's
huge. And look at the end of 2012. I mean, we had Hurricane Sandy.
Yeah.
Devastation. People lost homes. They lost their future. They lost their life savings. Some people
And maybe
did
they
lose a loved
were,
one.
yeah, maybe they were still alive, but lost. You're talking, it's a whole lifestyle that they lost there.
Yeah.
They just don't know how to.
No.
And then, of course, we have the Connecticut, the
Newtown, that horrible, horrible tragedy.
Yeah.
And I've actually spoken to a mother in the community down there as to how things are going. And they're still at the crisis intervention stage right now. And
How do you know when that's over? It's individual, right? I mean, there's not a point where you say,
oh
okay.
my gosh, no, it's so unique to each individual person, definitely. No experience. And, you know, we were talking before, and I said when someone says, I know how you feel, no, you don't. Because there's no, it's like telling me you know the color blue I see.
Yeah.
So you really never know how someone else feels. And each individual who went through that tragedy, each parent who did lose a child there is experiencing their grief in a very, very unique way.
Yeah, and I can't even, yeah, I would never say I know how you feel, because I can't imagine. And I don't envy you having to deal with people who have dealt with this kind of severe loss. But you say you've got a process that moves them along. It doesn't work or not work. It just moves them to the next
Exactly.
point.
This is not, come for 7 weeks and you'll no longer grieve. That's not even possible. Anybody who makes that kind of a promise, there's no way to follow through. This is just moving people through the understanding and really coming to be able to express some of the strong emotional statements that haven't been expressed that we hold on to.
Like, give me an example.
When a loved one dies. Well, it could be, I forgive you for dying.
Okay.
Pretty powerful for somebody who's angry that their spouse left them so soon, or married for 70 years and being angry with someone who died. I forgive you for not having all our finances in order.
Yeah.
Very powerful emotional statements that if they're not expressed, they just tend to continue to eat at you. And I say all the time that if you don't work through your grief and understand the normalcy of it, it comes back to bite you.
We're in a society, though, that it says, you don't feel good, take a pill.
Oh.
You don't feel good, go, distract yourself. It's like, so you're not recommending that.
No, and actually, the process that we use, one of the areas we look at are what we call STIRBs, and it's an acronym for
STIRBs.
short-term emotion relieving behaviors, and that can be alcohol, that can be food, can be antidepressants, could be shopping. I mean, anything that's going to replace your dealing with your grief, numb you from it, such as antidepressants.
Right.
Food. I mean, we're dealing with a society where the obesity rates are skyrocketing.
Yep.
People are feeding their grief.
Fears, their grief, whatever, their disappointments.
Absolutely.
There's a Twinkie. No, there isn't a Twinkie, actually. There's a cupcake out there for you somewhere. Yeah.
Really? You'll feel better. And it's not that you feel better, you feel different. You feel different.
Yeah.
You don't necessarily feel better, and you certainly don't get better.
Right. Let's talk about let's bust some myths, because one is, if I heard it once, I heard it a million times, you have to be strong. And it's like, okay, I'll be strong. I don't feel like being strong, but I'll be strong. Don't you have to be strong?
For whom? Usually it's for others.
You're right. I spent so much time consoling other people while they were consoling me. Yes,
true.
yes.
Yeah, no, be strong is, time healed all wounds is a popular cliche. And what else were we talking about? Oh, the cliches that are, replace the loss. You know, you'll get married again.
You're young.
You're young. You'll find someone new. I just buried my husband, the love of my life.
I'm not looking.
The loss of a child. Well, you have other children.
Oh, my gosh. Oh, yeah.
So all of the myths and the cliches that we use really just stop feelings in their track. It's like, don't feel.
And you know what?
Don't
It's interesting.
feel bad.
Yeah, when you said when people say you have to be strong, it's like when I said for whom, you go for the other person. You're right, because they don't want to see you cry. It's like, oh, don't cry. It's like,
and that's what we're taught.
Yeah.
And the poem that was written in the early 1900s, "Laugh and the whole world laughs with you, cry and you cry alone."
Right.
And don't cry in public.
Especially men. Whoa, don't do that.
And I've had many women say, I don't want to cry in public. I don't want people to see me cry.
Yeah.
So we cry alone because we're protecting other people. And I think a large part of a grief counselor's mission is education. And it's not only educating the grieving person that this is very normal and very natural, but it's also educating others as to how to best support someone who has had a loss.
Well, where do we learn how to grieve?
Oh, we learn how to grieve from the first recollections we have from the time. Most people, I think, their first memory is around 4, but some people remember earlier. And it's from our parents, it's from our teachers, it's from clergy. It could be from the television. Nowadays, it could be from the television. And we learn, and truly the person who is doing the teaching, the more authority they have, the more we believe it to be true.
Oh, boy, yeah. So let a teacher or a priest or whomever tell you, okay, it'll get better, and be strong.
Give it time.
Yeah, give it time, yeah. And that's the gospel.
And that's what we learned. And we learned that, you know, if you have a cupcake, you'll feel better. Don't cry. Don't cry. Stop the emotion dead. How many times do we say to children growing up, don't cry?
Yeah. I want you to be a big boy, big girl, don't cry.
Don't cry. Shutting down the emotion or expression of what they're feeling. So we learn it very, very early on. And actually, that's part of the process, what we look at. Because we repeat that. It's a learned response.
Well, let's get into crying for a minute, because everybody said, oh, if you cry, it's so cathartic. I didn't find that. I just looked ugly. After I finished, I was puffy, and I didn't feel any better at all. So what's your theory on crying?
Well, when I'm working with a client who's crying, I ask them to talk through their tears.
Really?
Yeah, I don't stop the session.
You don't give them their space.
Them to cry. No, they're expressing emotion. I want to know, what are the thoughts behind those emotions. You can sit in the depths of tears, but if you're not expressing the emotions that are behind them, you're not going to understand. The individual grieving is not going to understand.
Wow, and by the time you've given them a chance to get it together, then they've come up with a story, or they've come up with a brave front again. So
Exactly.
you actually, how cruel. She makes them cry, talk through their tears. I
And
like that, though.
it's a real relief for people. It really,
Yeah.
at first, they're very stunned the first time. And at times, it's very, very difficult to talk through your tears. But that's the catharsis. It's the talking and being heard,
okay.
not the crying.
Okay. And the tears are obviously reflecting an emotion that you're having of some sort.
Absolutely. But sometimes the emotion, it needs to be identified by the person experiencing it. And we don't do that in society.
No, we don't. It's all brave fronts. And I'm wondering, when you said something about, like, we learn from movies, I'm just wondering, are movies nowadays with people who, or even video games where people shoot down people and they get up in 5 minutes, are we desensitizing this whole thing?
We are. It's very, very for children.
I can't imagine.
And it's a certain age, between around ages 4 to 6. They think that, yeah, you shoot people and they get up again.
Yeah.
So the support and the knowledge of the parent about death and dying is critical to how our children are going to deal with tragedy in the future and loss in the future.
It's interesting. I have a dear friend who has a nephew she adores, and she had a picture of her father who's deceased on the television, and he asked, "Who's that?" She said, "That's my father." And he said, "Where is she?" And he said, "She's dead. He's dead." And the kid said, "Who killed him?" And it was just, I mean, we laughed and then we went, "Oh, that's not even funny. That's frightening." It's like, so, and for him to think he'll probably be back next week, just reboot.
Absolutely.
And yeah.
Absolutely. The reality that grief and loss, a part of life, is something never taught to children. Rarely taught to children, I should say.
Yeah.
Never. And actually, I know a woman who was a teacher, and she had told me the story that 2 of her students' fathers had died. And she took it upon herself to go and study grief counseling so that she could support and begin to teach. And she had one parent approach her and thank her because they actually talked about grief and loss at the dinner table.
Wow.
And that's not your typical, cocktail party conversation.
No, one of my favorite expressions is that Americans are the only culture that think that death is an option.
Absolutely.
So we try to avoid it, we run, we eat healthy, and we'll never have to deal with it, but of course we will.
Yes, and white people say I'm fine because...
Oh, tell us about I'm fine. I
that?
love that. That was my favorite thing, yes.
Frequently when you ask someone who has had a loss how they are, most often people asking aren't really looking for the whole truth.
Right.
They're not going to stand there and listen to how not fine you are. And the griever typically would respond saying, I'm fine. And that, for us, is an acronym of feelings inside never expressed.
I love that. Feelings inside never expressed. I'm fine.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what people want you to do. Don't express it, because I don't know what to say after you say it.
Exactly.
And I understand that.
Yes.
So when someone is grieving, what on earth should you say to them?
Well, I'm sorry for your loss. It's a very simple, honest
Right.
statement to make. Never to say, I understand.
Right.
I know how you feel.
No. Yeah.
To offer something specific in the way of helping. No. I'll be here for you.
No.
I will call you tomorrow.
Oh, that's nice.
But
Yeah.
specifics. In saying to somebody who has had a loss, call me if you need me, they'll never call.
No.
No.
I wouldn't, but no. And you wouldn't either, so no.
No, people don't. People don't. Because
Yeah.
they feel they have to be strong.
Right,
They're not
right.
going to impose on
So I'll
other
never
people.
need you, yeah. Okay.
So if you can be as specific as possible, Saturday I'll take the children. You can have a few hours to yourself. Now, this is somebody who's close to them. Specifics are very important, and I actually have developed a list that people can hand out to people who say, call me if you need me, and here's the list of circle them, walk my dog on
Wow,
Tuesdays, pick up my dry
fantastic.
cleaning. Because people, on both ends, the griever doesn't know what to ask for.
Right.
and the
right.
person offering is at a complete loss.
Now, is this part of the process that you take people through? Is it expressing their needs, or is it just expressing?
No, it's expressing their emotions through grief. In addition to the 7 steps, I have a lot of other
Oh, I'm sure you
helpful
do.
tools
Yeah.
that I give people because there aren't many out there. There really
Yeah.
aren't.
No, I mean there are things that you, like you say, don't work. That that you try to do. It's like, I want to get through these 5 stages and be done with this. Not going to happen.
No.
I want to be strong, and eventually I guess you will be. But right now maybe you need not to be strong. I don't know.
Well, you can be strong, and it can get you through another day. It's just like keeping busy, and people
Right,
say that.
right.
When I've heard somebody has had a loss, and I'll ask how he and she doing, they're doing fine. First of all,
Everybody's fine. Yes.
she's keeping busy. So those are the 2 things that tell me, no, she's not. No, he's not. And the ones that are most obvious, and it's actually what we want to see. Oh, they're fine. They're busy.
Right.
I don't have to go there.
Right.
And it's well-intentioned people. We don't want to see anybody suffering.
Right.
And we
And
don't know how to end that.
exactly.
grief
And it's
for
like,
them.
she has a great appetite. Well, what does that mean?
Yeah,
It's
she's
like,
eating well.
yeah, okay.
You know.
She's not starving herself, but the chances are she wouldn't have anyway. So,
But it is a process, and it's actually, I think what's most critical is taking the action steps that are necessary to move you from here to here with your grief, so that then you can begin to heal and move forward.
right. And you don't have to go through all these stages and everything. You just have to move, be able to move and deal and move and deal.
Well, understand.
Yeah.
Understand.
I
That's all.
think one valuable thing or service that you're providing is that you're removing the rules. There are no rules. It's like everything, you do what you do. If it takes you 2 minutes, that's a bit. 2 years, or if it takes you 10 years, it is, what it is, and how do you move forward? And that's definitely what a life coach does. But you're such a specific niche, and we try to avoid the tears at all costs. But you're saying talk through them. Let's get it out.
Yeah.
Tell me, we only have 30 seconds left. Tell people how they can get in touch with you.
Oh, my website is wisewidow.com.
Love that.
And my phone number is 914-703-2688. And I'd love you to read my blog posts, comment on them, and if I can be of any service to someone who is grieving a loss, you can email me through my website or call me at 914-703-2688.
wisewidow.com. Audrey, thank you so much. This has been so informative, and I think we
Thank
could do
you.
an Audrey part 2 because there's so many more sessions.
Thank you so much. It was great. Thank you.